The West Virginia football schedule has been released for 2026. Is it a gauntlet? Is it an easy path for the Mountaineers to get to the Big 12 championship? Is it somewhere in between? That's what we're talking about in tonight's live edition of Couz's Corner on this brisk Wednesday night, January the 21st. Thank you for joining the show. We're going to go over the schedule. I'm going to put it on the screen here in just a minute. We're going to take a look at it together. I'm going to give you some of my initial thoughts on it. As I've gotten home from work and had a chance to look at it briefly, haven't had a chance to study it in depth, but we're going to kind of go through it together. And then I'm just going to give you my initial thoughts, the negatives and the positives, kind of give you an idea where I think they end up finishing at the end of the year. Just a quick, not a full-on prediction necessarily, but just a quick, hey, at first glance, this is where I think the Mountaineers land record-wise. Then in the second half of the show, we're going to take a look at a couple transfers. One is kind of old news, but I have yet to give my thoughts on, and the other one is one that committed actually today. Rich Rod continues to work. He and his staff continue to do work in the portal. Even though it's officially closed and guys can't go in the portal now, they are still shopping and bringing guys into the program who are already in the portal. I assume that will probably not last much longer. They are going to have near a full roster. They already do, I believe. So I don't look for them to bring in a ton of more guys, but don't be surprised if you see one or two more guys added to the roster here in the next couple of days. We've got Gamecock Chuck and Browns and Beers both joining us here at the start of the show. Thank you, Browns and Beers, who's a VIP member. He says, I think the conference schedule broke about as well as it could have. I like it. Yeah, I like that comment. Well, let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and jump into that conversation. I got it on the screen for those watching. For those who might be listening, we'll talk through this, but hopefully you can see it there on half of your screen. I should have made it bigger to cover up my bald mug, but I didn't. Sorry, you still have to look at me. Or you can just, tell you what, you can just turn away and listen if you want. Might make your life easier. But anyway, all joking aside, let's jump into the schedule. Obviously, the Mountaineers open the season at home against Coastal Carolina. They then, which is their G5 opponent, the one who replaced Alabama on the schedule after Alabama decided after the SEC went to 9 conference games, they made a decision along with West Virginia mutually to drop that game. West Virginia was able to add Coastal Carolina thanks to the help of new president Michael Benson, who is obviously came to West Virginia from Coastal Carolina. Opponent number 2 is also a home game against their FCS opponent, UT Martin. Game 3 is a neutral site game against the Virginia Cavaliers. Now, Virginia, ironically, may be replacing the quarterback. Now, Chandler Morris has applied for a 7th year, I believe. So far, I think the NCAA denied his waiver, but I think he is fighting it or appealing it or whatever. Chances are he will probably not win that, but Chandler Morris is trying to come back to Virginia next year. If he doesn't, they will be led by either Bo Prabula from Missouri or a name most Mountaineer fans will remember, a guy who stood at the podium with cotton in his nose after getting beat up pretty bad in Morgantown last year, a guy by the name of Eli Holstein. Virginia went out and got both Eli Holstein and Bo Prabula out of the portal. I don't think Bo Prabula is a great quarterback. I think he's a great running quarterback. Not sure about his throwing. Full transparency, I've not seen Bo Prabula play a lot. I did like his tape. I thought West Virginia should have tried to win after him last year in the portal. He ended up going to Missouri. Nonetheless, I think he's a capable quarterback. Is he as good as Chandler Morris? Probably not. But nonetheless, you also have Eli Holstein, who got benched at Pitt last year for a true freshman, or at least I say true freshman. I don't know if he was a true freshman or a redshirt freshman, but Pitt benched Eli Holstein for a freshman. So he obviously had some issues. But we all remember that last year, that big win over Pitt, and how bad Eli Holstein was beat up by the Mountaineers in that game. But that's a neutral site game against the Cavaliers, who finished the season 1 win away from playing in the college football playoff, had a really good year, but they likely will be replacing their quarterback. But depending on how, and I haven't studied Virginia's roster, depending on who they have coming back, they could be another tough out next year. So this could be a very tough game on a neutral site. It'll be in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium. Mountaineer fans typically travel well to Charlotte. I know for myself, I'm going to try to go to this game. Charlotte is actually closer for me than Morgantown. I live in the southern, as most of you know, I live in the southern part of West Virginia. I can get to Charlotte in less than 3 hours, whereas it takes me 3.5 to get to Morgantown. So There's a good chance I'm going to try to make that one, but nothing's set in stone as of yet. Game 4 and game 1 of the Big 12 schedule is a home game this year as the Oklahoma State Cowboys come to Morgantown with new coach Eric Morris. They will be breaking in a brand new roster, brand new coaching staff after Mike Gundy was fired last year. Drew Mestemaker, the star quarterback from North Texas, will be taking the field for the Cowboys along with several other former North Texas teammates. How well will Oklahoma State do next year? Are they going to be closer to the 4-8 West Virginia team who had a brand new roster last year? Or will they be closer to the Curt Cignetti team from 2 years ago? Personally, I think they'll probably be closer to the West Virginia team. I think what Curt Cignetti did was a little bit of an anomaly. But I do think Oklahoma State is still going to be a pretty darn good football team. They're going to have a lot of talent. Drew Mestemaker was one of the highest, biggest name quarterbacks in the portal, one of the most highly sought-after quarterbacks in the portal. So he is a good addition, as well as some of those other North Texas guys. And Eric Morris, as we all know, has that very high-powered offense. He comes from the same coaching tree as Dana Holgorsen, Neil Brown, Mike Leach. The Mike Leach coaching tree basically is where he comes from. So he's going to put up a ton of points. Hopefully this Mountaineer defense will be ready for it. Game 5 is the first road game in the Big 12 at Iowa State, another team who's replacing their coach and who will have a largely new roster. We all know Matt Campbell left to go to Penn State, took most of the roster with him, as well as a lot of the recruits. New Iowa State coach Jimmy Rogers coming over from, I think, North Dakota State, I believe. Tough road to hoe. I have a feeling it's going to be a tough year for Iowa State. But it is going to be on the road, and we all know Ames is a tough place to play. I do see that super chat. I will get to it in just a second. We're almost to the bye week when we get to the bye week. Next on the schedule is another home game against Arizona as the Wildcats travel to Morgantown. Then you have in week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In week 7, you have the Cincinnati Bearcats. You have back-to-back home games this year in the Big 12, something we didn't see a year ago. The Bearcats come to Morgantown in week 8 on October the 17th, I believe that is. So we'll have to see if West Virginia can win that game. It's a game they probably need to win so that the second half of the season, you can go into the second half of the season with a lot more confidence. And, Rich, it's a game that, Cincinnati should not be more talented than West Virginia. Again, I haven't studied the roster, but, West Virginia fans are not going to want to lose to Cincinnati at home. Let's just face it. It's just the way it is. West Virginia fans do not feel that Cincinnati's roster should be better. Not saying Cincinnati is going to be a bad team necessarily, but, Brendan Sorsby's gone now. A lot of the players from last year's Cincinnati team, which was a good Cincinnati team, are gone. West Virginia, theoretically, at least according to the fan base, should win that game. Then, October 24th, West Virginia goes back on the road to face the TCU Horned Frogs in Fort Worth. Josh Hoover is now gone, but they did go get the quarterback out of Harvard, who I know very little about, but according to guys over at earsports.com, he is an NFL caliber quarterback. So apparently he is pretty good, and it's my understanding he was highly recruited out of the portal. I can't even remember his name off the top of my head, but they do play TCU in week 8, I think it is. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, week 8. I think I got my weeks backwards, but nonetheless, it's on October the 24th. They play TCU on the road. Now, this is when West Virginia gets to their first and only bye week. They play 8 games in a row before they get a bye week. That is a tough way to go. But you know what? They've had 2 bye weeks for the last couple of years that have lined up in fairly decent spots for the Mountaineers. This year they only get 1, not in a great spot. You got to imagine the team's going to be banged up by the time they get to this point in the season, which could make that trip to Fort Worth in week 8 that I just talked about even tougher. But let's go ahead and, before we get on to the next game, let's go ahead and take a look at this super chat we had come in from Swabby G, a.k.a. Appalachia Africa Twin. Thank you, sir, for the super chat. My cold weather camping friend there. Man, I cannot believe you camped in that 9-degree temperature. That is crazy, brother. Too hard edge for me. But anyway, thank you for the $10 super chat. He says 7 home games, 4 away, and 1 neutral site lines up for a very manageable season with some easier games to start the season and get their feet wet. I like it. Thank you for the comment. I appreciate that, and I tend to agree with you. I will say this, though. I want to throw this out there. When you take a look at West Virginia's schedule, whether you're watching this live or on the playback, let me know below. Do you think this is a breezy schedule, an easy schedule, or do you think it's a brutal schedule? Or do you think it's somewhere in between? And if you want to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being very difficult, 10 being very easy, let me know. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section. All right, let's go ahead they play 8 games in a row. To recap, they start off the season at home against Coastal Carolina, at home against UT Martin, a neutral site game against Virginia in week 3 in Charlotte. Week 4 is their first Big 12 game at home against Oklahoma State. Week 5, they go to Ames to face the Iowa State Cyclones. Week 6, they come back home to face the Arizona Wildcats. Week 7, they stay home to face Cincinnati. Week 8, they travel out to Fort Worth, Texas to take on the TCU Horned Frogs. Then they get a bye week. And in week 9, they stay on the road again, or go on the road again, go back to Texas, this time to West Texas, to take on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Now, it is good that West Virginia gets a bye week before they have to go out west to take on Texas Tech. Now, I have not had time to look at Texas Tech's schedule to see if they also have a bye week the same week. You guys will fill me in the comments. But if Texas Tech also has a bye week, we know how that went last year, right? Both teams had a bye week. Texas Tech absolutely slaughtered the Mountaineers in Morgantown, of all places. This time it's going to take place in Lubbock. We all expect Texas Tech just to reload again this year with that Cody Campbell NIL money. With all due respect to Texas Tech, though, or to show some respect to Texas Tech, rather, Joey McGuire has done a really good job building up the culture there, along with Cody Campbell's money. It takes both. It takes both. You have to have the culture and the money to go along with it, and you have to have the right players, and I think they're doing a good job of that. They will be breaking in a new quarterback. This year, I think it was Sorsby. Sorsby's going to be in Lubbock this year playing for the Red Raiders, so they can't avoid Sorsby. He's going from one Big 12 school to the other, so it should be another tough contest, but the last time the Mountaineers played against Brendan Sorsby, they cleaned his clock and defeated the Bearcats, and he had a very bad day. Now, it's a totally different team, totally different roster, totally different coaching staff, but, Brendan Sorsby's beatable. But he's going to have a lot more weapons around him in Lubbock than he had at Cincinnati. With all due respect to Cincinnati, that's going to be a tough road to hoe to go to Lubbock and win that game. But then you go to week 11. Yeah, I guess. Week 12, they come back home to face the Kansas Jayhawks on Saturday, November the 14th. Then they stay at home the following week to face the Houston Cougars. Finally, Houston comes to Morgantown. It's about freaking time, right? And then Utah, they close the season out on the road against Utah. Interesting nugget that I heard from Chris and Mike over at earsports.com. Their podcast earlier today, something I didn't realize. West Virginia has finished their schedule on the road 6 of the last 7 years. Now will be 7 of the last 8 years. And 6 years in a row they did that. All 6 years under Neil Brown, they finished the season on the road. Last year, they finished the season at home against Texas Tech. This year, they're finishing it on the road in Salt Lake City against the Utah Utes, who are replacing their head coach, Kyle Whittingham, but they are replacing him with defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley, who has been able to retain the majority of the roster, including quarterback Devin Dampier, who a lot of people thought would leave, chose to stay. So, Utah, they lost some recruits and lost a handful of guys, but they did not lose a ton of players. Now, let's go ahead and look at the pros, the cons real quick. Here are the cons I see to this schedule. Number one, I kind of already touched on it. No bye week until after week 8. This team is going to be absolutely beat up by the time they get to Fort Worth to play TCU in week 8. They're going to be beat up pretty bad. A lot of physical games in there. Really all of them will be physical to a degree, but especially starting with week 3 against Virginia, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight Power 4 opponents. You have to hope that they can beat Coastal Carolina and UT Martin soundly enough that they can get their backups in the game earlier to try to rest some of their big, main contributors, some of their starters, because you do not with your bye week not being until week 8, man, managing their snap counts is going to be important in those 2 games if you can. You obviously have to try to win the games. But if you can get comfortable enough leads in games 1 and 2 against 2 opponents you should beat handily, then, that gives you a little bit better opportunity to manage their snaps counts, rest them a little bit to start the season. And then by the time you get into week 3, they should be a little bit healthier. And then you can play that gauntlet of Virginia, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, Arizona, Cincinnati, TCU, right? Another negative, I mentioned finishing the season on the road at Utah. It's going to be a very tough way to go. There's a very good chance West Virginia could go into that game playing for bowl eligibility, or who knows, maybe even if things break right, and maybe you're one of these who believes this, maybe you have enough confidence in what Rich Rod's been able to do in the portal and recruiting that you think they can compete for a Big 12 championship. Whatever you think it is, whether it's bowl eligibility or Big 12 title, there's a chance it may all lie on a game at Utah. That's not a spot you want to be in. You don't want to be 5-6 going into that game playing it for bowl eligibility. So that's a little challenging. And then they don't play at home for about a month. They play against Cincinnati at home on October the 17th. If I'm looking at my screen's kind of far away from my face, I'm not seeing it too great. But anyway, they play that week 7 Cincinnati game at home in mid-October. They don't come back to Morgantown to play a game until November the 14th. So almost a month, right at 4 weeks, because they have a road game at TCU, then they have a bye week, then they have a road game at Texas Tech, and then it's that 4th week they come back home to Kansas. So now something similar happened last year, if you remember. They're doing it again this year. So they don't get to play at home from October 17th until November the 14th. So that's a long stretch with no home games. If they go into that stretch with a subpar record, the weather's going to start getting colder. If the season's not going well and they've lost a few games they shouldn't have lost, or things aren't going as great as you want them to, fan apathy could start to set in potentially. And then that Kansas game at home on November 14th could be a poorly attended game depending on what happens, the previous weeks. That's something that, Ren Baker and company could potentially be concerned about. And then, but let's take a look at the positives. Actually, when I look at this schedule, I see a lot more positives than I do negatives. So let's talk about those real quick. You do have 7 home games, a lot of opportunities to earn revenue, a lot of opportunities for fans to attend games. You play 5 Big 12 home games this year: Oklahoma State, Arizona, Cincinnati, Kansas, and Houston. Only 4 true road games. First time in many, many years. I think it was the 2016 season. I heard Chris Anderson say today, or I think it was Chris, talked about that today, which, was the year they went 10-2. Home games do matter. So, to me, it's one more opportunity to get a win at home. Home games are always easier than road games. We all know that. They don't have to play BYU this year. That's a plus. BYU is a very good football team, has been the last several years. Fortunately, West Virginia doesn't have to play them. And by the way, the other teams in the Big 12 they don't play are Baylor, Kansas State, Arizona State, UCF, and Colorado. Those are the teams they don't play in the Big 12. I mentioned the tougher schedule at the back end of the schedule, as Swabby G mentioned earlier in his super chat, is tougher. I mean, you look at the games early. Obviously, your Coastal Carolina, your UT Martin are winnable. I think Virginia's winnable. There'll be a large contingent of Mountaineer fans in Charlotte. I think with Oklahoma State and Iowa State both replacing their rosters, both of those games should be winnable. Arizona's should be a good team again, but it's at home. That's winnable. Cincinnati's winnable. But, man, you get to the bottom of that schedule, TCU's going to be good. Texas Tech's going to be great probably again, competing for a college football playoff spot, and both of those games are on the road. Andy Kotelnicki's back at Kansas, and we know how West Virginia struggled against his offenses at times. But it is at home. You got Houston at home, who Willie Fritz is likely going to have them winning again. Connor Wigman's coming back there. I expect them to be very good again. And then you have Utah rounding out the season. So there's a potential there that you play three of your last 4 games, maybe 4 of your last 5 games, could potentially be against ranked teams in Utah, Houston, Texas Tech, and TCU. And then who knows? Maybe Kansas ends up being ranked. It's my understanding Jalen Daniels is finally graduating from Kansas. But not sure who their quarterback's going to be, but we know that Lance Leipold is doing a good job there with player retention, with building a culture, doing a great job with that program. And again, Andy Kotelnicki coming back. I expect that offense to be really good once again in Lawrence. But could be a winnable game, especially at home. But I tell you, man, I see a lot of, at least on paper, I see a lot of winnable games on this schedule. I like the way it lines up. And finally, I mentioned this earlier, Houston finally coming to Morgantown. And I heard this the other day on a podcast. I think it was 3 guys. Houston has not come since Houston joined the Big 12, 3-4 years ago. They have not played a game in Morgantown in either major sport. They have not played a game in Morgantown in football yet. West Virginia has went to Houston twice. The Houston basketball team has yet to come to Morgantown. I did not realize that. So finally, the Houston Cougars have to come to Morgantown for one of the major sports. All right. And then lastly, Rich Rodriguez is known, his teams are known to get better as the season progresses. We saw it last year. We saw the same thing at Jacksonville State. So there's a chance, and especially with a rebuilt roster once again of 80-plus players, you have to think that by the time they get to the second half of the season, they're going to be gelling together a little better. The culture should be established better. They're going to be more comfortable in his offense, more comfortable in Zach Alley's defense. Things should start coming together by the time you get to those tougher opponents in the second half of the season. West Virginia should be a better football team. Now, they could be better too. And we obviously know injury can play a part in all of this. But we're all just speculating here anyway, right? But I expect West Virginia to be getting better. So I think I would rather have those tougher opponents late in the season than early in the season, just based on how I think this team will trend. And it's good that we have the group of 5 and FCS games early. Gives this new roster a time, to play 2 games together that they should theoretically win because they're going to be more talented anyway. Now, we know what happened at against Ohio last year, but I think that was an anomaly. The team will have more time to gel together playing those first 2 games, and then you play a non-conference game that, you want to win the game, obviously, but losing the game to Virginia doesn't ruin your season necessarily. It's not like losing to Pitt, right? Don't want to lose to those, Virginia Cavaliers, who we kind of owe one from what they did to us back in 2002 or 2003 bowl game in one of Rich Rod's first seasons at the helm. But nonetheless, it doesn't ruin your season if you lose it. So I like the way the season starts out, and I like the fact that you have your tougher, at least on paper, your tougher games late in the season when this team should be rolling along a little bit better and be a little bit more comfortable with one another. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the chat and grab some of these chats real quick, and then we'll talk about a couple of transfers, and then we'll get out of here. I know the men's basketball game comes on at 9. I think the women are already playing, but Daniel Gigak's in the house. He says Kansas is finally spending money on football. Absolutely, they are. They had that huge, was it a $400 million donation or something crazy from someone last year, or was it $40 million? Whatever the number was, it was a ton of money. Mountaineers headlines in the house. He says Houston came to Morgantown for basketball because we played them twice one year. Okay, maybe that's true. I was just going off of what Tony Caridi said on the show. I think it was Tony. I don't want to credit the wrong person there, but I heard someone say that on a show, but they could have been mistaken. Second half just started for the women, says Devil Dog. Thank you for keeping us posted, brother. WVU's record in Charlotte. I don't know that, but that's an interesting. I know obviously they beat UNC there a couple years ago in that Mayo Bowl, and they played Tennessee there a few years back and won. We remember them putting the beat down on the Volunteers down there. So those are 2 games I know that they won. Let's take a look at Raven Grady's in the house. His ladies are back on. They are struggling on offense. Sorry to hear that. Travis Overdorf says he thinks he could see 6-7 wins. 6-7. I had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to do it. You guys know I hope you know the 6-7 thing. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I've been waiting to do that on this show, and unfortunately I waited to do it while there was something on the screen hiding me from it. But anyway, had a graphic up on the screen. Let me go ahead and just pull that off, actually. No need to have that up the whole show. Travis Overdorf sees 6-7 wins. 6-7. All right. Sorry, there we go. Now I got it in. For those of you who don't know what that is, Google it. All right. Texas Tech plays Arizona before WVU. That's good to know. So they don't get a bye the week before. Maybe that gives West Virginia a little bit of an edge. Who knows? Michael says Texas Tech plays Baylor before they play us. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it's TCU. Gotcha. Okay. Sean in the house. He says, I like to see the glass as half full. I like your mindset, brother. I try to be as realistic as I can. Sometimes I get people tell me I'm doom and gloom, but I just try to look at things, form my own opinion, and see things, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, tell you how I see it. Some people think it's too negative. Some people accuse me of being sunshine and rainbows. You know what? But when you do this, it happens. Daniel Gigax once again says, I'm spending Thanksgiving weekend in Salt Lake City. Interesting, brother. That should be a fun weekend. I would love to make that trip. I doubt I will be able to because it's such a long trip. I'd have to fly. Flying is expensive, but who knows? Maybe I can make it work. I would definitely love to get out there. I've heard Utah's a beautiful state. I would definitely love to get out and see it sometime. Timothy Green in the house. Timothy, brother, haven't seen you around in a while. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining the live stream. He says, I'm going to say it in difficulty about a 7 because of the only bye is after 8 games. Yeah, he gives it about a 7. By the way, I didn't even go through and give you my prediction, did I? I'm looking at about a 6. I still think this. Let me put that back up again, and I'll give you guys my win over Coastal Carolina. UT Martin's a win. I'm going to put Virginia as a toss-up for now. Oklahoma State, I think, is a win because it's at home. Iowa State, man, Ames is a tough place to play, but I'm giving that a win as well because they're rebuilding their roster also. I'm giving Arizona. I'm putting Arizona as a loss. I think Arizona's going to be really good this year. I'm putting Cincinnati as a win. I think West Virginia gets through that first 6 games 5-1. Okay. I like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no, 7. They get through their first 7 games 6-1. Man, that would be awesome. Because I'm giving Virginia, I'm putting Virginia down as a win also. I think TCU's a loss. I think Texas Tech is a loss. Kansas a win. Houston probably a loss, and Utah a loss. So I'm going with 7 and 5. Looking at this schedule just real quick without diving into these teams' rosters or anything yet, just looking on paper, knowing that Iowa State and Oklahoma State are having a rebuilding year also, but they're in year 1 of a rebuild versus year 2. I think those are wins. The only game I'm really not confident in right there is Virginia because they are going to be returning a lot more people, a lot more continuity on the staff, a lot more continuity on the roster. The quarterback thing's up in the air, but I do think Bo Prabula is a dangerous quarterback, especially with his legs, and I look for him to probably win the job. Again, this is all on paper, but I think both TCU and Texas Tech are going to be good, and they're both road games. I'm not expecting much out of Kansas this year, to be honest, but I think Houston and Utah are both going to be good again. So I look at those two as losses. So I look at West Virginia. I think this is a 7 and 5 schedule right here. Could very easily be 6 and 6 if they drop that Virginia game or that Iowa State game. But I think if you can get through the first, you need to get through the first 7 games at least 5 and 2, because that last 5 games of the season, man, TCU. Those last 5 games of TCU, Texas Tech, Kansas, Houston, and Utah, man, that's a tough gauntlet right there. That is a gauntlet. All right, let's go ahead and get to the second half of the show, and let's talk. This won't take long, but I haven't talked about this guy yet. Caden Luke committed to the Mountaineers a few days ago. He says, hard people doing hard things, beer truck loading. How can you not love a guy? He's wearing a cowboy hat, blue jeans, and a leather jacket. For those of you, let me see if I can scroll up so you can get a better look at this for those of you watching. When he came on his visit with his family, he's wearing cowboy boots, blue jeans, a West Virginia Letterman jacket, which was they probably gave him to put on, and then he's wearing a cowboy hat. My gosh, that has Mountaineer written all over it, does it not? And then to talk about hard people doing hard things and to bring up Owen Schmidt, the beer truck, he's already a fan favorite in Morgantown. But Caden Luke is a 5'11", 230-pound fullback from Arizona. Grades out pretty well. His average run block grade, his 2 years at Arizona was about a 62.5, somewhere in there. So he can excel in the blocking game. He didn't play a ton of snaps at Arizona. I think he played around 72, 73 snaps, something like that. If my memory, I'm going strictly off of memory here because I don't have the information in front of me, but hasn't played a ton, but he does have experience in the Big 12 at the Power 4 level. And he fullback, tight end type, halfback type position. I love this pickup for the Mountaineers. Rich Rod said he was going to bring a fullback back into the fold. He's done that with a guy who has a hard edge, who I think is going to fit the culture. I don't think he's going to be afraid of the hard work that's going to be required, the hard coaching that's going to be required. I think he can handle all that. So Caden Luke, welcome. Assuming he signs and joins, follows through on his commitment. Welcome to West Virginia, Caden Luke. The next one we're going to talk about is, I was actually just committed today. I found out about it right before I came on, but his name's Cameron Reddick. He's a safety transfer coming over from the FCS ranks, spent the last 2 seasons at Stephen F. Austin. When you look at Cameron Reddick, he's 6 foot, 185 pounds, had 44 tackles last year, 4 passes defended, and an interception. Started, FCS has a playoff. He started in 13 of their 14 games, including a postseason game. The only game he didn't start was the very first game of the season. He did play in that game, and then he won a starting job and started the rest of the year. Played a total of 541 snaps last year, but has played over 600 snaps in his career, in his 2 years at Stephen F. Austin. When you look at his PFF grades, pretty good. I like him. 68.1 overall defensive grade, a 72.5 grade in stopping the run, 63.4 tackling grade, which is above average, a 65.4 pass rush grade, which is good for a safety, and then his coverage grade, 64.6. So he is above average or better in every single grade. So West Virginia's got a guy here who's put up good numbers, who's put up good PFF grades. Again, it's all going to be how can he, will that relate or translate to the Power 4 level? And if so, how long will it take him to adapt? Is it going to take him 5, 6, 7 games? Does it take him a whole season? He does have 2 years of eligibility left, at least 2 years of eligibility left. So, he does have an opportunity to get better, over the course of the season, even if he doesn't see the field a lot in year 1. But you never know. These guys could turn out to be really good players. But he has produced at the FCS level. Will it translate? And then when you look at where he played, he played most of his snaps at free safety. Probably about 60% of his snaps were played at free safety ballpark. But he also played quite a few snaps in lining up in the box, and then he also played some snaps at slot corner. So could he play that nickel spot? I'm not sure he's quite big enough to play the nickel spot where Fred Perry was, but you never know. He could come in, put on some weight. I have not seen the young man play, so I'm not sure what his play style is like yet. Not sure, of his physicality and all the things that go into deciding who plays where. But it's my guess is they'll probably start him out where he's comfortable, and that's free safety, where he's spent most of his career. But look, you're building depth. You need bodies. You got a guy here who has produced at the Division I level at least. See what he can do. Bring him up from the FCS. He may turn out to be a great player for you. And if he's not, you at least have depth at the position, because we all know, as we saw last year, you never know how many guys you're going to see get injured, and you need depth. At the very least, this is a depth piece, and at best, he could come in and be a starter. Who knows? Again, I haven't seen him play, so I'm not going to try to give an opinion on that, but I do like his PFF grades, and I do like his stats. He's not the biggest guy in the world, 6 foot 185, but he's big enough to play safety. And who knows? You could put him maybe he plays a little bit of corner as well. You never know what their intentions are. They like guys who can play multiple spots. Maybe you can put him a little bit at corner. Never know if he's a good enough coverage guy one-on-one. So anyway, let's get over and check some more comments real quick, and then I'll get out of here. Let's see. Raven says they won't rebound, talking about the women. The ladies are losing 11 minutes ago. Raven said the ladies were losing 31-27. 2008 CarQuest Bowl, Swabby G says they beat West Virginia. We were talking about West Virginia football's record in Charlotte. They beat UNC in the CarQuest Bowl. I had forgotten about that. So there's 3 wins right there. They did lose to UVA in Charlotte. That game, the bowl game I mentioned, was in Charlotte. It was a loss. So there's 3-1 that I know of. I could see anywhere from 7 to 9 wins as long as we stay healthy. Devil Dog says, I'm not going to be mad at 6-6 or better. Can't wait till that goes away, says Tosh. I'm not sure what he's referring to. I didn't see his earlier comment. Travis Overdorf, Mike Hudgens in the house says, this is no excuses season. So many of these teams are on rebuild. Jacob Yoho, he's very very optimistic about the season. He sees the team going 10-2. I'm not quite that optimistic, Jacob Yoho, but I like your optimism. I think 7, and this might sound doom and gloom. I think the ceiling for this team, based on the fact they're going to have so many new players, I think the ceiling is 8-4, and that is if some of these teams on the schedule turn out to be weaker than we think. I think 6-6, 7-5 is a realistic number. I think your floor is 5 wins. Your ceiling is 8. I don't see anything better than that. And I think 8's a stretch, to be frank. Having to replace 80 players is not easy. I don't care who you are. It's not going to be easy to do. But like you said, there are, like Mike Hudgens said, there are a lot of other teams in the conference rebuilding too. Can you beat those teams? Like last year, UCF and WVU were both in year 1 of their new coaches. Both had over 70 new players. UCF beat the brakes off of West Virginia. That can't happen this year. You can't have games like that this year. You can't have Iowa State and Oklahoma State beating the brakes off of you when they're rebuilding also. That can't happen. Swabby G says the UVA game in Charlotte is going to be a home game for WVU, as Charlotte is the hub of WVU alums. That's a great point. Charlotte it's my understanding Charlotte is either the biggest or second biggest alumni base outside of alumni outside of the state, obviously, in the country. Heck, it might even be bigger than in-state. I don't know, because a lot of West Virginia graduates have moved to North Carolina and surrounding areas to find work over the years. And Charlotte is kind of the hub of that. So great comment, Swabby G. Great point. Daniel Gigak says it's an 8-hour drive from my house. I assume you're talking about Salt Lake City. Swabby G says, if you go to Utah, you must go to see Moab, Utah, and the Canyonland National Park. OMG, the views. I have video on my page or channel. And by the way, Swabby G has a YouTube channel. It's Appalachia Africa Twin. If you are into moto camping, if you're into motorcycling, any of that stuff, go check his channel out. I think you'll find it interesting. And go sub it up, by the way. Batman Rock says, Coos, I recommend doing the drive to Salt Lake if we ever play there in the fall. Camp at KOA's on the way. Go up to Deadwood, to Montana, to Wyoming, and down. It's beautiful. I do it every summer. Man, that does sound like a fun trip. I'm not much on A, I don't know if I could get that much time off work consecutively. B, because as most of you know, this is not my full-time job. B, I drive a lot for a living, so I'm not sure driving that much would be fun to me, to be honest, or traveling that much. But I would like to go out west at some point in my life and do that trip when I have more time and can stop and take my time and do it. That would be an enjoyable trip. I've had friends who've done that and they really liked it. It would not be a bad thing to do. I guess you could take a week. You could probably do it in a week, maybe, if you drove straight through the night. I don't know, take turns driving or whatever, but I don't know. Not sure that doing that much driving is my cup of tea, but I definitely would like to see that part of the country for sure. P. Rose says, personally, I see with this schedule, we should win at least 8 games this season. 7 home games and 1 neutral site game is a blessing. You just can't give up. You don't get these schedules often, and that's a great point. That is a great point. You've got to beat Cincinnati at home. Teams like Houston, Arizona that you are on paper probably supposed to lose to. You need to win at least one of those at home, right? And if you can steal an away game, from Iowa State early in the year, I like our chances of finishing with a good season. Maybe this will line up like the 2023 year for Neil Brown, where the schedule falls in line for them and it's a little easier. Because I think in order for this team, for this program to regain its footing, they need to have a good season. They need to have a winning season. If you can have a winning season, retain most of your talent, get fans excited, get more money flowing into the program, that's how you start building this sucker, man. But it's crucial that they have a good year. Even if they go 6-6 and win a bowl game and finish 7-6, it's at least moving in the right direction. And I think the fans will feel better about the future. But you cannot have another losing season. Can't do it. BJ, the Mountaineer guy, says, not sure how we could even predict a record right now when we're going to have a completely new roster for the second year in a row. That's what I said, man. I'm doing it. I'm just glancing at the schedule, knowing what little bit I know about the other teams and what I know about West Virginia, which is very little because, like you said, it's a whole new roster. It's a total crapshoot, man. At some point, I will do a game-by-game deeper dive, but just at first glance, I'm saying 7-5. Swabby G says, super long way around from where Coos lives. He and I live in the way most southern part of West Virginia. Even with same players as this past year, bringing back Rick Trickett for O-line coach will improve it greatly, much less if we did add better players on top of that. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. I got Pinhead Larry in the house. Daniel Gigax looked it up, says West Virginia's 3-2 in Charlotte, lost to ECU in 1999 and UVA in 2002. Thank you for that information. It's good to know. Browns and Beer says excited to finally see Ames next season. So I guess you're heading out there. That'll be interesting. That'll be a fun trip. Oh, Raven rides a Harley Davidson Street Bob. Awesome. So go check his channel out, Raven. You might enjoy it. Swabby G says he's an adventure biker. I like to travel and camp out off my bike. Swabby G says if you want to do the Utah game next year, I'd be happy to drive it with you and split the travel cost with you. Thanks for the offer, brother. I really appreciate that. We'll see, man. It's close. That's awful close to Thanksgiving. Who knows what I'll have planned? It's hard to tell, but I'll definitely keep that in mind. I appreciate you. All right. I'm going to jump off of here, get ready for this basketball game. Thank you all for jumping in here in the show. If you're watching this, before you jump out of the stream, if you're live, hit that thumbs up for me. If you're watching this on the replay, hit the thumbs up for me. It helps the algorithm. It's absolutely free. It's right below the video. You'll see a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Hit the thumbs up for me, please. It really helps. Drop a comment. Let me know. Do you think West Virginia's schedule is a breezy schedule? Or do you think it's a brutal schedule? Or does it fall somewhere in between? Let me know your thoughts. I really appreciate everybody tuning into to this live edition of this show. If you're listening on podcast, please leave a 5-star rating. Please follow me over there on your favorite audio platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, whatever, wherever you get your Podbean, wherever you get your podcast. Please follow me. And please hype it. If you're watching on a mobile device on the replay, you might see a button below that says hype on your mobile device only. Hit it, please. That also helps grow the channel. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope the rest of your day or night is top shelf. God bless you all, and Q Country Roads.